Things have been difficult lately. Our family has been growing. Our oldest son Baxter is now 8 years old, and we recently welcomed our daughter, Michelle, to the world. My wife Ashley and I never seem to have time together anymore. With work and the kids, there's just no time for us to be a couple. We started fighting over the tiniest things, such as whose turn was to do the dishes, if water was left in the sink, or if a toilet roll was on backwards. Life was starting to become unbearable. After another massive fight, we were close to divorce, but we managed to smooth things out, and we decided that it was time we needed to reconnect. We would start dating at least once a week, so we needed to find someone to watch the kids. We found Tina in one of those online classifieds, so we invited her for an interview. There was a knock on the door. There was a young woman. She had to be in her early 20s. She had long auburn hair down past her shoulders, hazel eyes, a small, slim nose, and she was very petite. Almost like if you touched her too hard, she would break. Tina told us that she was a college student studying psychology, and that she took babysitting gigs just to make a little money. It also allowed her to study when the kids were asleep. This sounded absolutely perfect to us, so I asked her when she could start. Tina's eyes locked into mine, and she said she'd be available whenever I needed her. Her eyes lingered on mine for much longer than what they should have. She gave me a cheeky smile and a wink, and then she turned to talk to my wife. After talking, Tina said thank you, and that she was excited to start working for us. My wife and I decided to have our first date the following week, so I grabbed the phone and dialed Tina's number. Hi Tina, it's Mike here. Hey Mike, how you going? Great, thanks Tina. Hey, are you available to watch the kids tonight? The wife and I are planning to go out. Can you be here by 7 p.m? Sure, Mike. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Seeing the kids. Okay. I'm glad you're excited. See you at 7. Bye, Mike. After I hung up the phone with Tina, I was worried. That call was a little strange. There was a knock on the door. I yelled to my wife that I'd go and get it. Tina was standing there, and she looked absolutely stunning. She almost didn't look like the same girl who came to the interview a few days earlier. Her hairstyle was now dead straight. She wore a tight, black, three-quarter top, exposing her midriff, and extremely tight blue jeans. Her outfit seemed out of place for babysitting, and would have been more suitable for going out to the club. I ushered her into the house, and told Tina to make herself feel like home. She smiled and whispered, "That's the plan, Mike." I asked my wife if she was ready to go, and she came down the stairs, dressed up in a sleek green dress, her black hair resting on her shoulders. She looked like the girl I fell in love with many years ago. We said goodbye to the kids and Tina, and we went on to our date. We talked like we used to during the date, and were even flirting with each other. It was nice to reconnect. We had not been on this level for quite some time. My wife brought up the way Tina was dressed, and how it seemed a little bit sexy for babysitting. I mumbled I didn't notice Tina. I was only concerned with her. Without warning, I got a call from Tina. She sounded panicked. She said that Baxter was not feeling well, and we should come home straight away. We rushed home, and our son was complaining his stomach hurt, and he felt like vomiting. I told my wife to take him to the hospital, and I would stay with our daughter. Tina said that she'd stay with me and help while my wife was at the hospital. I smiled and thanked her. I heard the car race out of the driveway. I'm sure my wife was breaking the law, speeding as fast as she could to the hospital. After a few hours, I managed to calm the baby down and put her to sleep. Tina was downstairs. I went to go to my bedroom to get changed out of my date clothes, and I yelled to Tina I was going to have a shower. I stripped off and got under the hot water. It felt great on my skin. My mind kept wandering back to my son, and I was hoping he'd be alright. I had never seen him that ill before, and I was extremely worried. After turning the water off, I stepped out of the shower and started toweling off. I looked towards the mirror and I saw Tina's head disappear from the doorway. I called out to her, but there was no answer. After changing, I picked up my phone and rang my wife. She sounded panicked, saying that the doctors were unsure what was happening to our son. I tried to reassure her everything would be alright, but that was so hard, considering how worried I was. After hanging up the phone, I went downstairs to see what Tina was doing. She was lying on the lounge asleep. Her breathing was soft, and I could see her chest rising and falling slowly. I found a blanket and draped it over her. She mumbled and rolled towards where I stood. Her hand fell out of the blanket and brushed my leg. I stood there momentarily before I moved away. Time passed slowly while waiting to hear what had been happening to my son. All I could think was the worst. After a few hours, my wife called me to update me. "Mike, the doctors have tested him and discovered that he had rat poison in his stomach. How the hell did he get rat poison?" she screamed at me. I was dumbfounded, and I raced to figure out how he had ingested it. We had a mouse problem a few weeks ago, and we had baits laying around the house. Maybe he might have picked up some of the baits and not washed his hand, and that's how he was poisoned. I was trying to reason it out to myself more than my wife. "He needs to stay in hospital all night. I'll stay with him until the morning. Come in the morning and bring a change of clothes, and some for me as well, please." I agreed, and told her that I would send Tina home, and then get some rest. After putting down the phone, I felt a gnawing pit in my stomach. Something just didn't seem right. Sitting in the dark, I was lost in my thoughts of what had happened. There was a whisper that snapped me out of my daydreaming. "Mike, are you okay?" Tina asked. Looking up at her, I was lost for words. I could not answer her. My mind was only concerned with my son in the hospital. She came into the room and sat down next to me, putting a hand on my shoulder. She looked into my eyes and told me everything would be alright, and that she was there to help me. Her words were so kind and so genuine. No one had spoken to me with that sort of kindness for many years. It was a nice feeling. Tina reached her hand up and started to stroke my hair as she talked to me. I didn't even realise what she was doing for a moment. When I came to my senses, I reached up and grabbed her hand. Softly, I placed it on her leg before moving my hands away. "Tina, I think it's time for you to go home. I'll be fine here. Michelle is already asleep, and I'll take her to the hospital in the morning. You are such a good father and husband. I hope, one day, I can have someone like you," Tina whispered. "I'm sure you will. After all, you're a smart and beautiful woman. Any man would be a fool not to want to build a life with you." Tina smiled. Her eyes sparkled in the light. Fighting back the urges inside me, I turned my head away quickly. "Mike, I got a lift here earlier, and, well, I cannot get home. Maybe I could just sleep on the lounge tonight, downstairs?" A million thoughts were buzzing through my mind. I did not want Tina to stay the night without my wife being home, and there was no choice in the matter. It was already late, and I couldn't disturb Michelle. I told Tina that she could stay the night, and that I'd get her some blankets and meet her downstairs shortly. Tina got up from the bed and started to walk out of the room. When she got to the doorway, she turned her head to look at me, still sitting on the bed. I swear, she winked at me before she left. Finally, I got up and went to the hallway closet, got some blankets and some pillows. I made my way downstairs. Tina was sitting on the sofa and had 2 cups of hot chocolate sitting on the coffee table in front of her. "Mike, I made us something hot to drink. It should make you sleep easier and quicker." "Thank you, Tina. That is sweet." I put the blankets and pillows down on the lounge, taking a seat across from Tina. It might be risky sitting next to her after what she did before. Bringing the chocolate to my lips, it was indeed hot, but I took a small sip. It was sweet, almost like there was far too much sugar in it. After some more small talk about Tina's studies and life in general, I finished up the hot chocolate, placing the cup down on the table. Standing up, the world started to spin quickly, and I wanted to collapse. I slurred that I must be exhausted from everything that's happening that day, and I need to go to bed. Walking was a struggle. My legs felt sluggish, and I didn't want to move. Somehow, I managed to make it to bed. I am trying to remember how I got up the stairs, but I made it. My eyes flickered shut, and I could not open them no matter how hard I tried. Everything was sluggish, my thoughts were not coherent, and I could not string together anything. My thoughts faded into nothingness, and before I was sucked into the void, I am sure I heard Tina's voice. I couldn't understand what she was saying, as my mind went blank. Am I dreaming? It is hard to tell. Everything feels unnaturally slow, and my body feels so numb. It feels like someone is on top of me. I can feel their body pressed against mine. It feels warm, whatever it is. Is this warmth of skin against mine? I don't know. I can't tell anymore. Maybe I'll just go back to dreaming. Is that my phone ringing? My head feels fuzzy, and reaching for the phone it took me a moment. I pressed the accept button, and I was greeted by shouting. Who is this person? Where the hell are you, Mike? You should have been here hours ago. What the hell are you doing? Shit, it's Ashley. She's screaming at me. I mumbled to her that it's still early and that I'll be there soon. What do you mean it's early, you idiot? It's 11 o'clock. Turning my head, I looked at the clock on the nightstand, and Ashley was right. It was 11. I mumbled that I was sorry and told her that I'd be coming now. Throwing my legs over the edge of the bed, I pushed myself upwards, and my legs buckled under me, and I came crashing into the floor. Thankfully, it was carpeted. It hurt my ego more than anything else. My legs felt numb, like they didn't want to work. Looking back at them, I realised I had no pants on. I was half naked. I never sleep naked, but I had no time to think about that now. Scrambling back to my feet, trying to focus on getting them to behave, I threw on some clothes and went downstairs. I was greeted by the smell of cinnamon pancakes and syrup. I saw my daughter Michelle sitting in a high chair at the table. Her face was covered in chocolate syrup, and she was banging her plastic plate against the seat. Tina was standing at the stove. It took me a moment to realise that she wasn't wearing her clothes from last night. She was standing there, dressed in one of my shirts, which covered her torso, and I could see her black-coloured panties poking out from under the shirt. She turned to me and smiled. Good morning, Mike. I hope you slept well. I hope you don't mind. I borrowed one of your shirts. It was uncomfortable sleeping in my clothes. Tina picked up a plate of pancakes and sat them on the table with her, and she motioned for me to sit down. I hope you are hungry. I cooked these just for you. Looking at the pancakes, I replied, thanks. You really shouldn't have. We have to get going now, Tina. I have to get to the hospital. But I made these for you, she whimpered softly. I know. Thank you. But I must go. Please go and get changed. I'll drop you off at your place. Her eyes seemed to go out of focus for a moment, like there was some pressing thought in her mind. Tina turned off the stove and left the room without saying a word. The drive to Tina's house seemed to take an eternity. She was quiet and sulking. Maybe I was rude to her this morning, but I was worried about Baxter and needed to get to the hospital. My mind was still feeling heavy and fuzzy. I wasn't sure what happened, but something didn't feel right. Hopefully I'll shake it off soon. Pulling up to Tina's house, there was no cars in the driveway, and it looked like no one was home. Looking at Tina, I said, Thank you for taking care of the kids last night. I really appreciate it. I gave her a kind smile as I spoke to her. Tina's face seemed to brighten momentarily, and she replied thank you as she got out of the car. Before closing the door, she smiled and said, "See you soon, Mike." The door closed behind her with a loud thud. Pulling away from the curb, I could see Tina standing there with this strange look on her face. It was very, very unsettling. "You piece of shit! You were screwing the babysitter." Ashley was screaming at me again. Her usually angelic face was twisted in rage. I could see the veins in her forehead ready to explode. "What do you mean? I never slept with her. Why would I want to do that? I'm a married man," I yelled in response. "A married man with a dick that likes to screw whores like that. How many times, Mike? How many? Was it when I wasn't home? How dare you? Get out of my house!" "I didn't do anything," I protested as Ashley raised her hand as she slapped me in the face. It stung for a moment before it gave way to a burning sensation. Without another word, I left. Jumping into my car, I sped out the driveway. What had just happened? I never slept with Tina. Ash and I had our problems, but we were on the mend, and I'd never dream of doing that. Driving around mindlessly, I had nowhere to go. After hours, I ended up sitting in front of a park. Children were running around, swinging on the swings, going down the slides, and having a great deal of fun. My world had suddenly ended, and I didn't know why. Reaching down, I grabbed my phone. Maybe I could call Ash and talk about what happened. Somehow reason with her, explain that I didn't do these things. There was a notification on my phone. Unlocking it, I opened the message. It was from Tina. "Hey Mike, hope you're well. I've missed you. By the way, I talked with your wife, and I discussed our relationship, and how you'll leave her, so we can have a family together. Love you." I stared blankly at the phone. What the hell was this bullshit? My hand was shaking violently as I stared at the message. I could feel the rage burning up in the pit of my stomach. Was this girl delusional? I hit the phone icon and called Tina. The tone rang loudly in my ear. It was the only thing I could hear. The rest of the world vanished. It was only me and the phone. "Mike, you don't call. You don't text me. I feel lonely without you." Tina's voice came through the speaker. "What did you do, Tina?" "Ash and I had a long chat about you leaving her and us being a family. I'm pregnant, Mike, and it's yours." "Pregnant?" I demanded. "Yes, Mike, I'm pregnant. Don't you remember that magical night? Your wife was in the hospital with Baxter. We made love. You crazy..." "Don't call me crazy, Mike. I'm not crazy," she scolded me. "We made love that night. You were an animal, Mike. We made love many times. And now we have a cute little baby inside me." My finger moved across the screen and closed the call. I'd never made love to her. What the hell was she talking about? Racing back to that night. Oh shit, the chocolate. She drugged me. That explains why I was half naked. My phone started vibrating in my numb hand. "How dare you hang up on me?" "But I forgive you, my love." The words danced across my screen. The phone vibrated again. Dropping my eyes down, Tina had sent me a text message with a sound file attached. Moving my finger towards the file, I hesitated for a moment. I had this feeling that once I heard the message, everything would change forever. "Mike? Where are you? Mike? It's dark here." Ashley's panicked voice came through the phone. "She is There was a loud crack. "Don't call me crazy bitch," Tina's voice responded. "Mike, please Mike, come." Ashley was whimpering into the phone, and with that, the sound file ended. There was an address at the bottom of the text. Without a second thought, I slammed the car into gear and sped off. When I arrived at the address, I ran up the stairs and slammed into the door. It exploded inwards as I threw myself against it. There was a loud cracking sound of the wood as it burst into the room. No lights illuminated the area. The sense of urgency was boiling away. "Ash, where are you?" I cried into the darkness. There was a sharp pain in the side of my neck, and then there was a burning sensation as it flowed from my neck, up the arteries into my brain. It was burning. It felt like my whole body was on fire. My legs buckled under me. I couldn't control them, and I felt like the floor had vanished below me, and I was sinking into hot sand. It was burning me. How is this possible? Crimson flashes started to enter my vision. I couldn't focus, and the buzzing in my ears was unbearable. "Mike, can you hear me? There is a good little bunny. Time to go to sleep now." A familiar voice faded into the darkness. "Mike, my love." My head, God, it's pounding. Tina's face came into view. A strand of red hair hung limply and it brushed against my face. She was looking down at me. Was I lying down? It took me a moment to get my thoughts together. Indeed, I was laying flat on my back. Something was wrong. I attempted to move my right arm, but I couldn't feel it. Panicked, I tried to move the left arm as well, but there was no sensation. "My arms, what is happening?" I mumbled through the drug-induced haze. Tina looked at me with a big smile. White teeth shone from between her red cherry lips. She would have looked beautiful if that smile wasn't so twisted. "Oh, my sweet little bunny, you'll not need those anymore, or your legs. I would not want you running away, but don't worry, I'll take care of you." Tina disappeared from my view, and then I heard something that chilled me to my bones. A high-pitched whirling sound. I'd used enough power tools to identify what it was. It was a circular saw. "Now this is going to hurt." A calm voice, as cold as the grave. Before I could protest, I felt the saw tearing at my flesh. It was just below the knee. The sound of flesh tearing and bone breaking was too much. And darkness came for me, thankfully. For the second time that day, my sight came back to me. I was now sitting on a chair. I looked around, and God, I wish I hadn't. Where my arms used to be, there was 2 bloody stumps, just below the elbow, wrapped in white bandages, and my legs were in the same condition. What had I done to deserve this? Ashley, where is Ashley? I gathered up all my strength and I called her name as loud as I could. "Look to your left," came Tina's voice. My head moved like it was encased in water. I was hyper-aware of everything. I could see every pore in the cement wall. The white paint was flaking in places, and I could even see a trail of rust from a watery pipe. Ashley was sitting in a chair. Was it really her? She was sitting with her head in her lap, fingers wrapped around her jaw, holding it in a wordless cry, looking to where her head belonged. I let out an ear-shattering wail. My world surely did end in that moment. Something in my mind snapped, and I would never, ever be myself again. Where Ashley's head should have been, there was 2 little heads of my children sewn together. "Don't cry, little bunny. I am here now. I will take care of you forever." Tina's voice was so soft and caring. She dropped a toy baby on my lap and smiled. "Mike, meet our baby. Her name is Robin." She started giggling like a small child. From that moment, I started laughing, and I never stopped. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's lullaby. If you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, some of you may not know that I'm an author over on medium.com, where I write these short horror creepypastas. So if you wish to support my work, go over to medium.com and search Aswang Mike and have a read of some of my short stories. These short stories occasionally make their way onto YouTube as content, but I have a lot of content on Medium that I haven't put onto YouTube just yet. Remember, keep watching for what's in the dark.